Well, welcome to our first virtual reading. This reading is brought to you by the House of Zolo Independent Publishers. We're a newly formed independent publishing house based out of Toronto, Canada, and we specialize in speculative literature. My name is Erika, and I'm one of the editors, and I'm super pleased to be here in our cozy virtual bunker with JE Zolo, author of our debut novel, Phreak. So welcome, JE.
Hi, Erica. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, that's great. We obviously can't promote Phreak's release in the usual way, but actually, we had a virtual component to our launch plans already in the works, even before everything changed in the world. But now, actually, we're focusing all our attention on a virtual book tour. And what you are experiencing right now is the first book reading of that tour. And we're hoping this will become a more regular thing, but stay tuned for our next reading dates and when you can watch us live. And the tour will be coming to you from different VR worlds, Second Life, of course, Altspace VR, and several others.
I'm stoked.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. And just to introduce you to our virtual selves, that's actually the character Phreak is JE's avatar. So maybe you can tell us a quick little bit about that.
Part of the development of the chapters of Phreak, several of them went through this process with Roles for Women, which is a theater company I'm associated with. And some of them were performed, which was actually super interesting in terms of like editing. Because it had you looking at the text in a whole different way. And so part of the performance involved um, a virtual character because there is a virtual representation of the character is very active in the book. And so I went about creating Phreak kind of based on what we gather from them in the book. And they are a kind of hooded, slightly unknown figure. And I love that you are also a hooded figure here,
Yes.
Erica, dressed in a beautiful hooded cape.
Yes,
Um,
I love both our avatars. They work really well together, especially in this cozy bunker cabin at the end of the world sort of thing.
so where we are exactly in Second Life is on a sim called Odyssey, and it's a art and performance simulator. There's a lot of artists working here, building, performing, creating things. But when I was going through my inventory to find a nice setting for this, I found this very, very old bunker by an avatar called Arcadia Asylum, who was one of the first people in Second Life. And I'm just going to zoom out so we can see that it's actually built inside of an old shipping container. And what I love about this and all of Arcadia's work, Arcadia insisted that everything be free access. So all of their work is 100% free. And this was also all created at a time when a lot of the items in Second Life now are created using different techniques, mesh mapping and all this kind of stuff. So we get lovely detail. But when all this stuff was created, it was back when everything was made just out of prims. And it's really masterful what Arcadia did. And Arcadia left stuff all over Second Life for people to use and free access. Anyway, so it's right up my alley.
Yeah, it's lovely to be here and such a privilege, really, to hear you reading from Phreak in this location with all of that lovely history.
Yeah, it is kind of neat how the character has also kind of migrated into different parts of my life so that I've actually got this virtual representation of the character who is also on the cover of the book. Um, so in a sense, Phreak, when this is Phreak, here is Phreak. This is what Phreak looks like in my mind. But I did kind of write it so that readers could project their own vision of Phreak onto the character.
Yeah, it's not every day that you get to experience a reading from the main character of the novel itself.
Yeah,
So that's
that's
how I like
true.
to think about it.
That's neat.
Yeah, before we launch into the reading of chapter one itself, I just wanted to mention that as House of Zolo, we just released our very first publication this January, which is very exciting. It was a journal of speculative literature, a collection of short stories and poetry that is now available on our website and Amazon. So I just wanted to mention that. Phreak, it will be the first novel that we publish, and I have the ultimate privilege of getting to edit it, which I'm just so excited about. And then also, I wanted to mention as well that volume two of the Journal of Speculative Literature that we're doing is in the works and will be coming out in May, at the end of May.
Yeah, and I just want to say that the work in volume one is just absolutely stunning. And to be a part of this new publishing house, I love that,
Yeah,
basically.
we're taking the speculative scene by storm, I guess you could say. We're really
Woohoo!
excited.
Yeah, the journal is just full of such incredibly powerful writing and such a broad range of subject matter, but I love how it's all couched or referencing dystopia. There's authors there addressing the impacts and effects of consequences of climate change. Um, and it's got so much heart, you know. That's what's so impressive about the collection is it really gets you in the heart too. I'm so impressed by what speculative writers are doing today, what they're thinking about. It's a great book. I recommend anybody go and pick it up.
Yeah, the stories just took our breath away when we were reading all the submissions and narrowing down which ones we wanted in the collection. It was really hard to choose because the first of all, the overwhelming response that we had to the call for submissions last July, and then ending up with 30 brilliant short stories and poems. So we're just so excited to have published this first volume and the second one in the works. And you can get this volume one of the House of Zolo's Journal of Speculative Literature on our website, houseofzolo.com. And from there, it will take you to each of the Amazon stores from wherever in the world you are trying to buy off Amazon.
Cool.
So, yeah, check it out. And we would love to hear from our readers. And if you can leave a review on Amazon, that's also really helpful to get independent publishers like House of Zolo um, to more readers.
Actually, that's a really good point. I didn't realize until, I started this foray into publishing and putting my first book out, just how really critical stuff like, people's input, people's stars, people's thoughts are to promotion in this crazy world of algorithms and stuff. It's kind of fascinating and kind of frightening at the same time.
So yeah, any review, any Goodreads review, Amazon review, talking about it on social media, sharing it with anyone, all of those things are very, very helpful to independent publishers. So please do all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing that certainly has occurred to me, and I think has occurred to a lot of other writers who write speculative literature,
Mhm.
especially dystopia or post dystopia, or in the middle of a post, apocalyptic or
Mhm.
whatever, how, I did feel really strange. Like, is this a good time to be releasing this? But I guess, in talking about it with a bunch of my other writer friends and seeing how other writers in this genre feel. I mean, one of the reasons why we write in this way, I guess, is so that we can speak about what we see going on in the world around us and to speculate on where it could lead us. And that is certainly
Mhm.
what has happened for me in creating Phreak. Um, this is very much a response to world systems, and so maybe there is something valuable in that. Certainly, one of the things I'm trying to do is kind of share what I know, share what I think I know, or what
Mhm.
I think might be important. And so I decided that it was a good idea to forge ahead and to utilize the systems that we do have that are really serving us well right now, like this this place where we are meeting in 3D and being able to have a sense of community and hang out and be together.
Yeah, and especially in virtual spaces, a lot more people are starting to realize how valuable they are, and meeting people in Zoom calls and different in different ways. Community is being built online more than ever.
Yes.
So I think it's
And
very interesting that we are able to do these VR readings and share that with people.
yeah, it's awesome to be familiar with virtual reality and to already have communities built in VR and social VR. I do a lot of work in performance, installation, and community organizing in virtual reality, and have a new project running right now. But yeah, it's a great place. It's a great place to have access to right now, and I'm enjoying myself as much as I can in these times. And so, without any further ado, what I'm going to actually do, just because my Phreak outfit doesn't have a face, is I'm going to change into a formal reading outfit so that you guys can actually see a face reading to you instead of this blank space. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, and voila! I have changed into a brand new avatar.
Beautiful.
Just while we're in Second Life, one thing that's very cool is just how customizable it is once you figure out the interface. So here's a little mock-up of the book cover too, um, which was just decided upon fairly recently. There were quite a few options, but this one really communicates the book.
So thank you very much for joining us this evening. Again, these readings are brought to you by House of Zolo, and on behalf of Niles Anderson, the publisher, and myself and all the other staff at House of Zolo, we hope you enjoy this reading.
Awesome. All right, so I am going to read chapter 1 in its entirety. So if you're listening, please settle in, get a glass of wine, um, and prepare for the reading of chapter 1. Sorry, I'm rambling like a weirdo. Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. Uh, all right, here we go. This is chapter 1 of Phreak. Astrochimp. There is a place on the map of my life, situated in the past, that is my childhood. At childhood, there are tall fences. There's the old gray tenement house. Around back, there's a wild, tangled garden, and on the edge of that, out behind the shed, there's a web of complicated paths. The paths lead into the darkness, and if you go down the wrong one, you wind up in a sinkhole. At the very edge of childhood, on the threshold of the teenage pain belt, there's a high wall of empty cages. I visit these places on the map often, enhancing the details, adding new elements, and searching for clues. Dad is a trivia master, and he has the awards to prove it. Rising up through the ranks of the mainstream trivia world is no small feat either. There are only 22 trivia masters on the whole island and less than 1,000 worldwide. Dad's hunger for trivia is insatiable. He dedicates all of his spare time to collecting and memorizing facts and statistics and spends his weekends studying online. He prints his research on paper and pores over the documents, scanning for any defects. Then he encases each page using his home lamination machine. Always have a good, clean hard copy. If I manage to teach you one thing in life, let it be that. His collected trivia is housed in thick, multicolored binders, indexed and alphabetized on a set of shelves in the shed. The collection covers a range of topics: world records, capital cities, historical events, and dozens of binders filled with music trivia. Dad has a set of special black binders that document statistics and facts concerning the different animals that scientists use in research laboratories. He can tell you how many rats have died in scientific experiments every year by country. He often describes, in searing detail, the experiments scientists have developed for the rats, how they take their tongs, pick the rats up by their tails, and drop them into tanks of cold water, how they stare at their stopwatches, timing the rats to see how long it takes them to drown, and then how they stand around the tanks inputting the resulting data on their tablets. In other experiments, they inject the rats' blood with chemicals to study the effects of different products and poisons, or they infect the rats with diseases and hang them upside down while opening up their brains. In the latest breakthrough, they've been growing human parts on the rats' living bodies. There are thousands of people walking around very grateful to have new ears and fingers. Isn't science amazing, kids? One of Dad's favorite areas of study is the wide array of animals the world's space programs have been sending into orbit. It's his most recent obsession, and we hear all about it again tonight at the dinner table. Dad sharpens the carving knife with his usual dramatic flair, dragging the wetting wand across the blade until it's razor sharp, and then he sets in cutting up the roasted cluck. Many of our space animals didn't make it out alive. Some were suffocated. There's no air in space, kids. Most of them exploded on impact or burned up coming back through the atmosphere. Who wants a wing? It's just a regular cluck, so today there are only 4 wings. Sometimes we get the cluck deluxe, which has 12 wings, but that's for special occasions. Prue wants a wing, and my mother takes another one. I pull a wing off for myself as Dad goes straight for the breast meat. That leaves 1 wing for Prue and I to fight over later. Now, one of the first animals launched into space was a little white mouse. Imagine that, kids. A little white mouse in an itty-bitty spaceship. It didn't survive the journey. Suffocated when its capsule ran out of air. Poor mouse. They didn't think too far ahead in those days because they lacked... Prue? What did they lack? Foresight. Correct. I reach across the table to snatch the last wing from the cluck. There's a flash of silver and a sharp pain as my mother cracks me across the knuckles with the butt end of her knife. A fraction of a second later, she's cutting up a piece of food on her plate. She doesn't bat an eyelash, and as the welt rises across the back of my hand, I can't help but marvel at her skill. I rub my bruising knuckles, and Dad continues carving up the breast, ignoring the commotion. Then came the first chimpanzee in space. We know this, of course, having been told the story many, many times. Nonetheless, Dad lowers his voice and begins the tale as if letting us in on a grim secret. Far across the ocean, kids, on the other side of the world, a young chimpanzee was playing in the trees with his brothers and sisters when he was caught up in a net set by a gang of trappers. The chimp cried and thrashed about, but it was no use. The trappers came along by and they put the chimp in a crate and sold him to a research lab down south. The Special Forces recruited him a year later. He spent 5.5 years in training before being launched into orbit in his very own space capsule. Dad's always saying that one day he's going to take us to see the Astro Chimp for ourselves at the Wonderland exhibit in the Capitol. All the chimps who go into space wind up in zoos or museums. The Astro Chimp, Dad told us, had a female counterpart who trained for space alongside him. She didn't make it into orbit, though. She lived most of her life as a breeder for the Special Forces. She was busy producing and rearing baby chimps for the military until she was 41. She's on exhibit now at the Aerospace Museum. Dad sharpens his carving knife again and slices off 2 slabs of cluck. It's the babies they send into space and put in the movies. An adult chimp has big fangs and is 4 times stronger than any human. A grown chimp would tear the face off you, so they need to use them when they're still babies. My mother speaks very matter-of-factly as she cuts her food. Dad pauses, resenting her interruption. After holding the moment extra long, he continues with his lecture. The astrochimp was the first ape in space, but as you know, the very first animal sent into orbit was a dog, a stray dog. I'd always pictured a miniature spaceship and a dog in a spacesuit with a round glass helmet. The reality, as Dad was about to act out in grisly detail, was different. The dog didn't have a spacesuit, kids. She was strapped into a harness inside of the capsule, and she suffocated in a few hours because the capsule ran out of oxygen. He stops, brings a hand to his throat, and feigns choking. Then he undoes his shirt buttons and starts pretend wheezing. And it was so very hot. So hot, kids. The poor dog. She didn't know what to do. There was no way out. Here he smiles at Prue and I, and then resumes piling meat onto his fork. She went around and around in orbit as a dead body, and her capsule burned up on her way back through the atmosphere. She was turned into cinders. Either way, the poor dog was doomed. Dad stops and eats a forkful of cluck. Doomed? Don't you remember the policy? I told you about it last week. He's tucked a wad of half-chewed food into his cheek and talks out of one side of his mouth. The scientists usually poison their space animals when they get back. But why? They have good reasons. Scientific reasons. Classified information, kids. Through Dad's dinner-time stories, I know that the different world governments have sent multitudes of critters up into space. Mice, guinea pigs, and frogs. Some have sent rats, tortoises, fruit flies, others cluck embryos, lemurs, ant colonies. The superpowers, it seems, have been endlessly competing to see who can send the most diverse array of wildlife into orbit. On one of the space stations, they're experimenting with the effects of gravity on giraffes. Get your paws off the fucking bird! Mom swipes me across the jaw with the back of her hand. It makes my ears ring. Prue tries to suppress a gleeful laugh, but she can't. Now Dad will try to give Mom some space and will insist on extra long trivia drills after supper. Tonight, like every night, Dad will force Prue and I to stand at attention on the back lot and compete in trivia rounds. What is the capital of Zania? Prue? Mira City. The capital of Zania is Mira City. Good, Prue. Prue always wins the trivia rounds. I know the answers just as often, but I don't have the competitive spirit. Also, I resent being put into high-pressure situations against my will. Prue loves to win, and she thinks she's better and faster than me at everything. She was born first and is always lording that over my head, as if that means anything. We came late in life for our parents. They met when they were older, and then it took them years to get all their documents approved. By the time Prue was born, Mom said she was already wore out. I arrived only 11 months later. Mom said she cried and cried when she found out she was pregnant with me. According to family lore, Prue was not happy either. She threw a week-long tantrum when they brought me home, and later, when she learned to walk, she climbed into my crib and tried to smother me with her blankie. Things aren't that much better now. She delights in my misfortunes and trips me up whenever she can get away with it, which is most of the time. Even though Prue is half vicious, people still ooh and ah over her delicate bone structure and her pretty face. She's just exquisite. Look at those eyes. Mom is forever gloating about Prue's beautiful coloring, her dark hair and big eyes, her smooth complexion. She also likes to boast about Prue's aptitude with numbers and that Prue just knows how to make things. She gets that from my side of the family. Exceptional genes are one of Mom's favorite bragging points, and she equates all of our good qualities with her bloodline. My unfortunate features come from Dad's side. Mom says my coloring is just blah. Boring eyes and hair so thin and nondescript, she says it doesn't even qualify as a color. Mom can be pretty mean, too. Probably where Prue gets it. Meanness runs through genes as well. When angered, Mom curses like a drunken longshoreman. I've learned to tell how pissed she is by how elaborately the curses come out, so if it's something gentle like sweet buggeration, it's okay. But if it's sheasley, flip-floppin' motherfucking cocksucker, well, it's time for everyone to scatter to the four corners as she comes barreling through the house, the hairbrush or wooden spoon poised to swat at someone. Sometimes it's harder to gauge. She can go off on a 20-minute tirade, shit me, fuck me, cock me, cunt me, because she can't find her wallet. I've learned to steel myself against the sharp edges of her words, but still, the curses run through me like a buzzsaw. When she's happy with you, she'll say, "You are so gorgeous, I could squash the frigging life right out of you." Or she'll tell us she wants to eat our faces off. This is her way of saying she loves us. I am repelled, but part of me longs for this approval. It's a strange, disquieting comfort that I find in her arms. Dad has never missed a trivia club meeting, and every spring and fall we go to watch him in the regional competitions. After his 10th straight win, he qualified to compete in the National Trivia Wars Championship for the title of Trivia Master. On the day of the taping, we arrived early at the stadium. Mom and Prue and I sat in our seats in the second-to-last row while Dad went backstage to get into makeup. The stadium had a capacity of 50,000, and soon it was filled to the rafters with animated mobs of people. When they were all seated, talking and taking videos, the crowd morphed into one being, a creature with a multitude of mouths and thousands of eyes of light. The voices thrummed together with a sound that yawned like a bottomless pit. The lights lowered, and the announcer, Fatty Knight, dressed in a shiny silver suit, came bounding onto the stage. He stepped into the spotlight. "Welcome to Trivia Wars!" Fatty lifted his fist into the air, and the crowd, now a seething shadow in the dark, cheered with one voice. "Welcome, studio audience. Are you ready for some trivia?" The shadow erupted into cheers. "I can't hear you." The crowd rose to its feet, and the sound it made was deafening. "All right, keep it going, my friends, and give it up for the host of tonight's show, Danny Damson." Musical fanfare filled the room, and the stage came to life with glitter and lights. Danny Damson sailed out in a glistening ivory pantsuit, cool and composed, a mane of silver-white curls flowing behind her. Dad had always called her a class act. Danny purred and welcomed the audience, and then introduced the players. Dad's eyes were two saucers as he strode out onto the stage and took his place on the lighted platform. The other contestants, Jaco, a middle-aged man, and Yasmin, a college student, stood on either side of Dad, and the game started with a zinging round of snappers. Dad did not let another competitor get to the buzzer. What chemical element begins with the letter Q? Quantium. Correct. What famous engineer invented the hydrocompressor? Winnie Darrell. Correct. How many orbiting satellites control the integrated grid network? 3. Correct. What is the nearest star to our planet? The sun. Well done. That was a trick question. Danny winked at Dad. Dad stayed on top throughout the whole game, but towards the end, Yasmin was catching up. When they got to the last round and Danny announced the final category, World Capitals, we knew it was a done deal. Dad swept the round. Congratulations, you are the island's newest trivia master. Danny Damson kissed both of Dad's cheeks. Confetti and balloons fell from the ceiling, and little rockets went off on either side of the stage. Dad bounded from his platform to the winner's circle, where he jumped up and down and slapped his thighs. As the crowd thundered, Mom held onto her armrest with one hand and wiped the tears away from her eyes with the other. Dad's Trivia Wars win gives Mom plenty of fodder for her afternoon tea sessions with Aunt Frankie. Aunt Frankie isn't really our aunt, but Mom says that's what we have to call her. Aunt Frankie has gotten Mom into smoking and has been taking her out to gallery openings and poetry readings. Whenever Aunt Frankie visits, she leaves half a pack of cigarettes on top of the fridge and a pile of glossy magazines on the kitchen table. I'm dragging you into modern society, my dear, whether you like it or not. Mom fleetingly skims the magazines and then throws them into the garbage bin. She rants about them to her sisters during their weekly three-way calls. These rags are all ads. What a pile of bullshit. Oh, yes, yeah. Shocking waste of paper. Right? And that poet, missus? So damn precious. A 25-minute poem about an icicle. An icicle! My dear, I could hardly keep a straight face. Their raucous crowing fills all the rooms of the house. Mom talks and laughs, blowing the smoke from her cigarettes towards the kitchen window. The smoke bounces off the screen and floats back into the room and down the hallways. When the haze gets thick, Prue and I head out to the yard to wait for the call to end. Go on, girl, that's not true. Yes, an icicle? Yes, my dear, a fucking icicle. Who does she think she is? Today, Aunt Frankie and her 4 humorless daughters pull up to the house in a rusted 2-door bug car. Prue and I squeeze in across the pile of kids to find a place to sit. With 4 kids on the back seat, we have to press through the crush of legs and crouch on the floor among assorted pop cans and takeout wrappers. Some of the pop cans still have liquid in them, and as the summer heat floats in through the gaps of the door frames, I can feel that liquid transforming. I close my eyes and try to stop myself from pulling each awful thing out of the air, but it's impossible. My mind's eye tears them apart and separates them into colors. Scents travel in feathery trails, winding along the surfaces of the world, crawling around corners, intertwining, sometimes getting stuck in the grooves where they thicken and concentrate. The grapey grape soda at the bottom of one can is congealing and on the verge of becoming rancid. There are smears of sickly sweet ketchup, the color of dried blood, a hardening lump of yellow-brown mustard, and bits of reconstituted onions at the bottom of a double-decker burger box. There's souring milk, the dustiness of old cigarette butts. Coffee cream has spilled under one of the front seats, and a puddle of blue-green mold is slowly creeping across the floor of the car. The molecules from each rotting thing enter my face and mix together in my sinuses. I pull my t-shirt up over my nose and pinch my arms to distract myself. Aunt Frankie is in the driver's seat, wearing a red and white polka dot bikini and smoking a long pink cigarette. She speeds down the road like a race car driver, confidently passing transport trucks whizzing by the factories and industrial parks that line the highway. We're barreling towards Halle Valley, an exclusive private park on the outskirts of the city. Aunt Frankie's membership card to the Halle Valley Country Club is a leftover from her marriage to Remy. All the lawyers in town are members. There is always that moment, though, as we pull up to the security gate when everyone holds their breath. Aunt Frankie slips the membership card into the slot, and time stops as we wait to see if the old card will still open the lock. Then there is a collective sigh when the console beeps and the light turns green. The long steel arm of the gate lifts into the air and we drive in. The Halle Valley Chalet is nestled at the edge of a wide beach of imported white sand. The sand goes on, circling a serene azure lake that ripples with soothing, artificially generated waves. We exhaust ourselves through the afternoon, running and swimming and jumping cannonballs off the wharf. The light grows longer and I make my way to the beach blanket where Mom and Aunt Frankie are unpacking the picnic basket. Schmeat and mustard sandwiches on puff bread, a box with mini bags of snack chips, crispy dilly dill pickle flavor, 2 thermoses of pinky lemonade, and a bottle of homemade wine for Aunt Frankie and Mom to share. I keep quiet and lie on the blanket. Mom and Aunt Frankie soon forget I'm there and I listen in on their conversation. As soon as he finished that law degree, he packed a bag, walked across the street, and moved into that prostitute's house. Scandalous, my dear. I'd burn the fucking place down. Aunt Frankie pulls a fresh pack of cigarettes from her purse. I can't even look through my own window. It's a nightmare. He says they're moving soon. He's looking to buy a house up in the tree streets. Aunt Frankie starts to cry as she lights her cigarette. I'll never get out now. I'll be stuck in that 2-bit rat trap prison till the day I die. No, girl, no. Mom rubs Aunt Frankie's shoulders. I'd punch his friggin' lights out. I'll do it for you if you want. All you gotta do is ask. I can't help but smile because I know she'd do it. She would. Dad used to drive us to work in his beloved car, a white, vintage, Free Spirit GL45, but a couple of weeks ago it broke down. Dad was in total denial about the demise of the car, and after trivia drills, he spent every night out on the driveway working on the engine. He could sometimes get the car going by pushing it until it picked up speed and then jumping in and pumping the pedals. That technique stopped working after a while, but not until we endured 2 family excursions being pushed down busy streets, Dad jogging beside us as Mom, Prue, and I sat belted into the passenger seats of the driverless car. Finally, after Dad lost control and a truck narrowly missed ramming us at an intersection, he relented and started taking the bus to work. There were a few times that Aunt Frankie came by and picked us up so we could run errands. She'd pull up in the mornings, still in her robe and slippers, and always with a cigarette hanging from her mouth. She'd drive us around to the Super Save and out to Island Power so Mom could put credit on the energy bill. That arrangement came to an abrupt end, though. Prue and I had been out in the yard, digging a hole to the other side of the world. We went inside at dusk to find Mom sitting at the kitchen table with all the lights off. She was chain smoking. Come with me. Mom marched 2 streets over to Aunt Frankie's house, with Prue and I following from a safe distance. She strode up the steps to the porch and pounded on the door. When there was no answer, she grabbed the big stones from the border of the walkway and put out all of Aunt Frankie's front windows. She threw the stones like a baseball pitcher, overhand and wicked fast. They've been double fucking crossing me, she fumed all the way through the walk home. I found one of her disgusting love notes in his raincoat pocket. They've been meeting at the martini bar, and who knows what else. Oh, I'll find out, though. You can be damned fucking sure of that. She signed the note? No, but I'd know her bitch handwriting anywhere. When my father came home that evening, we hid in the basement as my mother beat him black and blue with the hose of the vacuum. As I heard each blow land, hot pinpricks of pain zigzagged up the back of my legs like burning electrical charges. My mother's screams came bouncing through the furnace ductwork and echoed in our ears. How long, you dirty, dirty Martland cocksucker? I swear to bloody hell I'll fucking fillet you to death. I'll kill ya, you dirty, rotten whore. Dad's voice was indecipherable. He was squeaking with terror. We huddled together in the dark and feared for our lives and for the lives of every living thing in the neighborhood. Mercifully, after a time, the screaming stopped and my father left the house. We were sure they'd get arrested or would be separated, and for 2 weeks Prue and I crept around bringing her cups of tea and privately worrying we would become neglected children from a broken home. We'd have no shoes. We'd be latchkey kids, just like we saw in that miniseries. It wasn't long, however, before my father came crawling back on his hands and knees, as my mother said in the recounting, and things slowly went back to our version of normal. Dad continued to put all of his heart and soul into his passions, trivia, new inventions, gardening. But most days of the week he'd be at work, driving a truck and delivering boxes filled with bags of chips. He's responsible for the distribution of all snack chips around the entire coast. Dad is forever carting in surplus cases of the new flavors and the reject chips that don't sell. I've probably sampled more flavors of snack chip than anyone ever. Dad can't stand chips, but me and Prue and Mom make short work of every box. Some of the more experimental flavors are tailored to the different regions of the country. Like out west, it's Angus and gravy flavor, and for the East Coast, they send stuff like the very poorly received simulated bologna flavored chip, the corned beef hash chip, and the ill-fated sour cream and clams. Those were recalled because of contaminated shell particulates. There was also an experimental line of fruity chips, grapey grape, so-so orange, and very cherry that lasted only 2 months before they were discontinued. Dad has never missed a day of work. He has never taken a sick day, even when he was sick. And this year, the chip people noticed Dad had accumulated so much leave time that they insisted he take 2 months off. Last night at dinner, Dad made an announcement. As a way to bring the family together, he had rented a camper van and planned a family trip. Dad was going to keep true to an old promise. As part of our itinerary, we would visit the astrochimp, the first primate in space, at the Wonderland exhibit in the capital. We were going to go to the mainland. Mom sat there, rolling her eyes. The Wonderland dome above us simulates a brilliant blue sky. Fluffy white clouds gently float near the horizon. In the old-timey village exhibit, we look past the glass to the broad horses pulling wooden plows through the dirt. There are people milling flour and others baking bread in huge open ovens. Children are tending to gardens next to the rough log houses. A voice in my earbuds says the houses have been built according to historically accurate specifications. A woman in a bonnet and petticoats is sitting on a porch, churning butter. She pounds her stick up and down in the barrel as sweat streams down her face and drips from the end of her nose. This is boring. Prue has been whining all day. We go to the Wonderland exhibit and see hollow projections of the last dolphins in the world jumping up out of the water to kiss their wet-suited handlers. In the game farmland, we swipe our cards in the vending machines and take a handful of dry food pellets to the animal pens where Prue and I feed and pet 3 sad, mangy baby deer. We trek around the endangered species exhibits, the wolves and the swans and the wildebeests. Dad checks the guide board and the maps, looking for directions to the chimpanzee pens. Then Dad realizes he's forgotten his cell in the camper and insists we go back. I can use the cell instead of these ridiculous maps that make no sense, and I'm going to need pictures. Inside the camper, we eat cheese slices on puff bread as Mom hands around a bottle of vitamin water. Okay, now that we've all been fortified, come on then, family, let's go and find the astrochimp. Dad's face beams. Nobody responds. Do we have to? Prue lies down on the daybed, and Dad's smile morphs into a frown. Yes, we have to. That's why we came all the way over here. Don't you want to see the first chimp who went to space? Oh, for fuck's sakes. You and that damned ape. The kids are tired. My back is killing me. I'll go. I want to see the astrochimp. Dad brightens right up and casts his arm across my shoulders. All right then, kid. Me and you. Dad and I set out to find the chimpanzee module. Dad puts the exhibition pamphlet in a trash bin and lets me navigate with his cell. Thanks to all my gaming experience, I'm skilled at maps, and we find the display in no time. The first exhibit is an enclosure full of chimps sitting in small groups. 2 younger ones are playing on a tire swing. A mother chimp is holding a baby tightly under her chin. The baby's fists clutch the fur on her shoulders. Further along the path, some of the chimpanzees are isolated from the others, in their own cages. Which one do you think it is? I don't know. Dad chuckles to himself. They look like us, don't you think? See that one there? I think he looks like me. And over there, that one looks like your mother. Indeed, one of the chimps has an unimpressed expression that is all too familiar. We walk along the path, searching each cage for a sign of the astrochimp. Finally, at the very edge of the chimpanzee exhibit, we come upon a solitary enclosure. It's barred across the front and has 3 concrete walls and a great ceiling. Sitting on the floor, in the corner of the dirty cage, is the first ape that ever went to space. There's a corroding brass sign affixed to the wall above him. It reads, "World's First Astrochimp." Astrochimp looks us up and down with a disdainful shrug, and then he reaffixes his eyes on the simulated sky above his grate. He sits motionless, hunched and white around the edges, ignoring us. Dad approaches the cage. "Hello there." Astrochimp shows us his back. "Don't be so antisocial. Come on now, boy. Give us a smile." Astrochimp turns his head farther away. "Don't be like that. I've come a long way. Hey!" Dad is yelling now, and I can feel Astrochimp's irritation. My face flushes. I don't think he likes yelling. Maybe he wants to be alone. No, he doesn't. He wants to talk to us, don't you, boy? Hey, boy, over here, boy. Astrochimp rises abruptly, runs at the bars, and raises himself up to his full height. He bares his long yellow fangs and roars, "Set me free." I think that means he likes me. Astrochimp sits back down and sighs as my father pulls out his handkerchief and wipes sweat from his forehead. "Quick, take a picture." Dad hands me the cell. He crouches down in front of the pen and poses with a smile. The Astrochimp ignores us in the background. I snap a picture and the flash goes off, freezing the moment in time. Dad printed and laminated the photograph of the Astrochimp and tacked it to the wall of the shed, right next to his shelves of trivia binders. Dad's eyes glisten as he looks directly into the camera, his eyebrows slightly raised and his mouth parted in surrender to what looks like pure happiness. Behind him, just above Dad's right shoulder, the Astrochimp is visible through the bars of the cage, facing away from us, staring up at the sky. And that is Chapter 1 from Phreak.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That was really engaging. Yeah, and we can't wait for it to be published and for everyone to be able to get their hands on the digital copy.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's been a long time coming. I can't wait to get it out, and thank you so much. It's a great opportunity for me, and it's been awesome. I look forward to our next one.
Yeah, I do too. Thanks so much, JE, and yeah, we can't wait for Chapter 2. Thank you so much. You've been listening to JE Zolo reading from their debut novel, Phreak. You can find it on houseofzolo.com in just a few short weeks. We look forward to seeing you at our next readings.